where I'm at.
Yep.
That when I think of boxing, and you know, and I saw you talking to Bob Aaron. Let me tell you something, because I love me some Bob Aaron. I really do. Let me tell you something, Bob. If you could sit up there and talk to Al Heyman about getting Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury in a rematch, you can talk about getting your boy Terrence Crawford in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. You can do that. Instead of him fighting some guy 2 weight classes lower than him, and Mikey Garcia, that's certainly doing what he's gonna do, eat some donuts or whatever and pump with him, and Mikey Garcia, that's certainly doing what he's gonna do, eat some donuts or whatever and pump himself up to 147 pounds. If you can do Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, you can do Crawford and Errol Spence.
You're absolutely right.
I like it, but I'm a welterweight guy, Max.
You're absolutely right. Why not do business across all the different divisions?
That's right. That's right.
Now, I'll say this about the welterweights. Sure, the welterweights are an excellent division. Like in the 80s, when you had, in the early 80s, you had Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard.
You can talk about getting your boy Terrence Crawford in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. You can do that. Instead of him fighting some guy 2 weight classes lower than him, and Mikey Garcia, that's certainly doing what he's gonna do, eat some donuts or whatever and pump himself up to 147 pounds. If you can do Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, you can do Crawford and Errol Spence.
You're absolutely right.
I like it, but I'm a welterweight guy, Max.
You're absolutely right. Why not do business across all the different... I'll say this about the welterweights. Sure, the welterweights are an excellent division. Like in the 80s, when you had, in the early 80s, you had Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez and Roberto Duran. The welterweights. Sure, the welterweights are an excellent division. Like in the 80s, when you had, in the early 80s, you had Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez and Roberto Duran. Golden era of welterweights, and it was an amazing time. But whenever the heavyweights have the action, it's always the best for boxing. The big boys are the best. When that's going strong, boxing is at its biggest, if not best. And I want to say something about Tyson Fury. He's not a big puncher, but you know who can be big attractions when they're not big personality. Like Floyd Mayweather wasn't a big puncher.
Not at the heavyweight, Max.
No, even heavyweight. Muhammad Ali by the end wasn't knocking a lot of guys out. But it became a thing where people were emotionally invested in him. So it wasn't about how he won. It was about whether or not he could win. And Tyson Fury is on the way, if he can keep winning and being involved in big fights, in being the kind of guy that people are interested in to see whether or not he can pull rabbits out of his hat, not knock people out.
The heavyweight division is going to be Joshua and Deontay Wilder in that kind of collision. You gotta have knockout power as a heavyweight. Nobody can tolerate that from Floyd Mayweather, dancing around for 12 rounds. They can't do that with heavyweights, I'm telling you.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Boxing Facts Over Fiction. I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon for more videos like this. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, and the female lady. I forget her name. Molly or something. She says a lot of dumb stuff I don't pay attention to, but I'm focusing on the guys here. But Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, these guys, they're very funny when it comes to talking boxing. Max Kellerman knows a lot about boxing, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes he has an agenda, he says what he wants to say, but when he's not going about his little agenda, he says the right stuff. Like, he was one of those first people to predict Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence to be one of the biggest fight. And I'm going to be one of those people to predict that fight is being planned to be a really big fight. Is it a coincidence these two guys are fighting on pay-per-view this year? I don't believe it's a coincidence Terrence Crawford is fighting on pay-per-view this year, even though he's fought on pay-per-view before with Victor Postol. So he has pay-per-view, you know, some pay-per-view experience. Errol Spence first pay-per-view against a small guy and Mikey Garcia, and some people really believe Mikey Garcia is gonna win that fight. Come on, guys, let's get back to reality, man. I hate telling people the same thing, but we have to get real with ourselves here. But looks like Stephen A. Smith had a lot to say about Mikey Garcia, man. He said Mikey Garcia looks like a guy that eats a lot of donuts and blow up. I mean, nobody wants to see. He said nobody wants to see Errol Spence versus a blown up Mikey Garcia that eats a lot of donuts. Stephen A. Smith is a hilarious character, man. That has to be one of the funniest interviews I've ever seen. Max Kellerman and Molly was both laughing when Stephen A. Smith said that. Stephen A. Smith said he's a fan of welterweight. He's not much of a fan of the heavyweight right now. He liked the heavyweight division, but he's a welterweight guy. And the fight he wants to see is Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I like Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, but I'm a welterweight guy myself, and that's the fight I want to see. I feel like that's the fight that needs to be made. Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. And this fight is being really built, systematically built perfectly, man. As long as these guys stay undefeated, this is going to be a huge fight. I'm going to go ahead and be one of the first to say this fight could be a $50 million a piece each from each guy. You guys may say I'm talking crazy, I'm talking nonsense, but make sure you hear it here first. This could be a $50 million a piece fight. This is a big fight. This is a big fight. A lot of people will pay top dollars to see a fight between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. I'm going to be one of those guys. They got my money already. That's the fight I want to see. I don't want to see that fight when Terrence Crawford get too old, because Terrence Crawford is in his 30s. Errol Spence is 29. So we want to see that fight in the next 2 years or less. But that's the fight we want to see when both guys have a few belts. So I'm looking forward to that fight. But the fact that Stephen A. Smith rips Mikey Garcia, says he looked like an overblown size guy that eats a lot of donuts or whatever the heck he was trying to say is hilarious, man. And he's not lying. That's what Mikey Garcia is going to do. He's going to come into this fight fat. He looks fat in every fight he goes into. I mean, we see his belly. We see his midsection area. Maybe this is why a lot of guys underestimate Mikey Garcia, because he comes into a lot of fight fat. But he goes into a lot of fights with the better ring IQ. But he's going into a fight with a guy that has good ring IQ as well. And it's not like he's going against a guy that doesn't throw a lot of punches. He's going against a guy that throws a lot of punches, not an Adrian Burner. He's going a guy that's not going to stop coming. You're going to have to knock Errol Spence out for him to stop coming. Mikey Garcia couldn't knock out Adrian Burner, Robert Easter Jr., Sergey Lipinis. You guys expecting me to believe that Mikey Garcia is going to knock out Errol Spence? You're smoking crack rocks. Whatever drugs you're taking, your drug dealer is going to be a rich man, because you're going to continue to go back to him, because that's a powerful drug, you know. And I don't support drug use, but that's ridiculous if you really believe Mikey Garcia has a shot at beating Errol Spence. This is a homecoming fight for Errol Spence Jr. The guy's fighting in his own backyard, the Dallas Stadium, and you expect me to believe that Mikey Garcia will beat Errol Spence Jr.? You guys are ridiculous. You guys are on. I have no idea what these fans are taking nowadays. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave the interview in the comment section, in my description section. I want you guys to go ahead and watch that video. I'm also going to break down this interview again. I'm going to go ahead and break down this interview again, getting more into depth about what Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman talked about, because they talk a lot about the heavyweight more than the welterweight. But Stephen A. Smith mentioned the welterweight, which is why I'm talking about what he said about Mikey Garcia. And I kind of agree with what Stephen A. Smith said, because in every fight Mikey Garcia goes into, he looks like he's fat, but somehow he's able to pull off the win. But he looks fat. He doesn't look in shape. I mean, so it looks like Mikey Garcia probably will be eating a lot of donuts, like Stephen A. Smith said, for this fight, to blow up, to fight a big guy in Errol Spence Jr. But those donuts are not going to help Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia will get crushed in this fight. His eye socket will be broken. His ribs will be broken. Mikey Garcia may leave on a stretcher in this fight, guys. I'm being serious. Mikey Garcia may leave on a stretcher. Errol Spence is going to stretch this guy. Errol Spence is going to stretch this little guy moving up 2 weight classes, daring to be great. Nobody asked him to be great. He should have stayed at 135 and have a huge fight with Vasily Lomachenko. In a fight he has a better chance in winning than a fight with Errol Spence Jr. when we all know he's not beating Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is pretty much unbeatable at welterweight. Only guy that can possibly beat Errol Spence Jr. is Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence is freaking unbeatable at welterweight. Man, There's nobody at welterweight that can challenge Errol Spence Jr. But Mikey Garcia want to move up from 135 to challenge Errol Spence Jr. You want to tell me Mikey Garcia beats all the top welterweight as well right now? That's what I want you fans to answer these questions. Do Mikey Garcia beat all the top welterweights right now? If not, then why is he fighting Errol Spence Jr.? Why the heck is Mikey Garcia fighting Errol Spence Jr. if you guys don't believe he beats every single welterweight, the top welterweight right now? Do you honestly believe that Mikey Garcia can beat every single top welterweight in the world right now? Do you guys really believe that? If you don't believe that, then you know Mikey Garcia is doing a suicide mission and he's going to get bodied in this fight. But do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that